ikakimka.
Talo be jampel kam ka chike, unukulilo batel kutuch pajal be chake.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Apocalypto 2, while widely discussed among fans, remains an unofficial sequel concept to Mel Gibson's 2006 masterpiece, Apocalypto. The original film, which was set in the declining years of the Mayan civilization, focused on the harrowing journey of Jaguar Paw, a young man captured by rival tribes and forced into a desperate struggle for survival. The film was acclaimed for its authentic portrayal of Mayan culture, the use of the Yucatec Maya language, and the raw depiction of jungle survival and societal collapse. Apocalypto 2, as imagined in fan communities and speculative media, seeks to expand on the story's rich historical context, imagining what might occur after the events of the first film. Though Mel Gibson is frequently mentioned in online discussions as a possible returning director, there has been no official confirmation or involvement from the original creators, and all materials circulating online are fan-made or conceptual in nature. The fan-based vision envisions a continuation of the story that maintains the intense, visceral storytelling and immersive historical setting that characterized the original film, while exploring new challenges for its central characters. The plot, as conceptualized by fans, is imagined to take place in the aftermath of the Maya civilization's decline, with Jaguar Paw's lineage facing new threats and challenges. The story proposes the arrival of European explorers, potentially including historical figures such as Hernán Cortés, introducing a clash of cultures that heightens tension and raises stakes for survival. The narrative explores the intersection of indigenous societies confronting external influences, political instability, and environmental hardships. Jungle landscapes, treacherous rivers, and dense forests are central to the imagined setting, providing both a backdrop and an active participant in the story's tension. Fans speculate that the sequel would emphasize themes of resilience, courage, and the importance of preserving cultural identity in the face of overwhelming odds, maintaining the original's balance of action, suspense, and historical commentary. While no official script or storyline exists, the fan concepts consistently suggest that Apocalypto 2 would deliver an emotionally charged and visually striking journey, continuing the tradition of epic survival drama. Regarding characters, the unofficial sequel centers on Jaguar Paw or his descendants, continuing the narrative thread established in the original film. These characters are imagined to confront the challenges posed by a rapidly changing world while struggling to maintain ties to their heritage and community. Alongside Jaguar Paw, conceptual characters include tribal leaders, allies, and antagonists who reflect the cultural, political, and social dynamics of the period. Fans envision complex interpersonal relationships that mirror the original film's focus on loyalty, bravery, and the tension between personal survival and communal responsibility. While the cast of the first film, including Rudy Youngblood as Jaguar Paw, is often imagined to return in some capacity, no official casting has been announced, and all names associated with the sequel remain speculative. Nevertheless, the fan-created content frequently suggests that the characters would be as dynamic and compelling as in the original, with the addition of new figures to enrich the imagined storyline. As for the cast, because Apocalypto 2 remains a fan concept, there are no confirmed actors or official announcements regarding performances. Online discussions often speculate about returning actors from the original film reprising their roles or portraying descendants, but these remain purely hypothetical. Concept trailers and speculative artwork suggest a mix of familiar faces and newly imagined characters, highlighting the potential for a visually and emotionally engaging ensemble. Fans emphasize the importance of authenticity, imagining performers who could realistically embody the cultural and physical demands of the story, including fluent speakers of indigenous languages and actors with a strong capacity for immersive, physically intense roles. While this speculative casting creates excitement within the fan community, it is important to note that no studio or production company has confirmed any participation, and all details about the cast should be treated as imaginative projections rather than factual reporting. In terms of release information, Apocalypto 2 has no official release date, production studio, or distribution plan. The discussions circulating online are purely speculative, often created by fan filmmakers, YouTube content creators, or social media enthusiasts. Despite the absence of formal production details, the imagined release scenarios generally propose a cinematic experience consistent with the original, potentially using large-scale film techniques and immersive sound design to recreate the intense atmosphere of Mayan culture and jungle landscapes. Fans hope for an eventual announcement by a major studio or involvement by Mel Gibson, but as of now, there is no verified information suggesting that such plans are underway. Any references to release dates found online should be regarded as speculative or hypothetical projections created by fan communities. Regarding trailers and promotional materials, the only content available is fan-made or concept trailers shared across platforms like YouTube and social media. These trailers attempt to capture the visual style, intensity, and narrative scope that might be expected from an official sequel. They often include jungle action sequences, dramatic confrontations, and representations of Mayan culture, blending original footage with creative reinterpretations. While visually striking, these trailers are explicitly labeled as unofficial and should not be mistaken for formal promotional content. They serve primarily as imaginative exercises, showcasing the potential of a sequel and generating discussion within the fan base about what a continuation of Apocalypto might entail. The creativity and dedication of the fan community keep the idea alive, even in the absence of official production. Finally, it is crucial to understand that Apocalypto 2 remains entirely speculative and unofficial. No studio has greenlit a sequel, no official plot or script exists, and no confirmed cast or release date is available. All information currently circulating online is derived from fan speculation, conceptual trailers, and creative discussions within online communities. While the enthusiasm for a sequel reflects the enduring impact of the original film, any references to Apocalypto 2 should be interpreted as imaginative projections rather than factual reporting. Fans continue to create and share content, imagining how the story of Jaguar Paw and the Mayan civilization could continue, but as of now, the sequel exists only in the realm of fan creativity and concept art. As the narrative of Apocalypto 2 moves toward its resolution, the focus shifts from immediate survival to the broader implications of the community's struggles, examining the enduring consequences of their choices, the preservation of cultural identity, and the shaping of collective memory. The climactic sequences, though action-packed and emotionally charged, give way to reflection and synthesis, as characters begin to integrate lessons learned from repeated trials, both against environmental hazards and external human threats. In these final stages, survival is no longer solely about physical endurance but about sustaining knowledge, values, and societal cohesion in a rapidly changing world. The audience witnesses a community that has weathered immense adversity, emerging with a renewed sense of purpose, ethical clarity, and cultural continuity, even as the landscape around them remains as unpredictable and formidable as ever. Cultural preservation becomes a central concern as the characters consider the future of their society. Elders, having guided the younger generation through perilous experiences, emphasize the importance of ritual, storytelling, and knowledge transmission. Ceremonial practices, once threatened by the disruption of external forces, are reinstated with renewed vigor, serving not only as spiritual anchors but as mechanisms for social cohesion and historical continuity. The protagonist and other leaders recognize that physical survival alone is insufficient. Without the active maintenance of language, customs, and spiritual knowledge, the essence of their civilization could be irrevocably altered. In this way, the story reinforces the idea that cultural resilience is intertwined with physical and moral survival, illustrating the holistic challenges faced by societies under existential threat. Interpersonal reconciliation and the resolution of relational arcs are woven into this phase of the narrative. Conflicts that arose from rivalry, jealousy, or differing strategic priorities are addressed through dialogue, shared experience, and acts of courage or sacrifice. Romantic bonds are solidified, providing emotional closure and reinforcing the human stakes of the story. Familial relationships, often strained by loss, separation, or moral dilemmas, are repaired through acts of loyalty, understanding, and forgiveness. These resolutions underscore a central theme of Apocalypto 2, that human connection is a vital component of survival, sustaining not only individuals but the moral and social fabric of the community. By attending to these emotional dimensions, the narrative ensures that the story's climax is as meaningful on a personal and relational level as it is on the scale of physical and cultural survival. The long-term consequences of the events depicted are made evident through careful narrative reflection. The encounters with external invaders, the trials imposed by the environment, and the moral decisions faced by the characters leave indelible marks on both the individuals and the community. The protagonist, having demonstrated strategic insight, moral courage, and adaptability, becomes a living symbol of resilience, guiding future generations not merely through physical survival but through ethical and cultural stewardship. The younger generation, shaped by both triumphs and failures, emerges with a sophisticated understanding of leadership, cooperation, and the importance of cultural fidelity. These narrative threads emphasize continuity. The story is not simply about surviving the present but about preparing the society for a future in which knowledge, wisdom, and communal bonds are the ultimate weapons against the uncertainties of history. Environmental themes continue to underscore the resolution, emphasizing the interdependence between humans and their surroundings. The jungle, though relentless in its challenges, is also a source of life, sustenance, and inspiration. Characters' understanding of the land, its flora and fauna, and its seasonal rhythms is presented as a critical element of survival, as well as a spiritual and ethical framework for decision-making. Floods, storms, and predatory threats that once posed mortal danger are now interpreted as forces demanding respect, ingenuity, and reverence. This integration of environmental awareness with cultural practice illustrates a central theme of the story. True resilience encompasses physical skill, ethical clarity, and a deep understanding of the natural world. By portraying humans as both part of and responsive to their environment, the narrative conveys a profound respect for the complexity and power of nature. The narrative also reflects on the consequences of cultural collision, particularly through the imagined encounters with European invaders. While the immediate threat may be mitigated through strategy, ingenuity, and environmental mastery, the story emphasizes that contact with foreign powers inevitably leaves a lasting imprint on society. The characters' experiences highlight both the vulnerabilities and strengths of their civilization, reinforcing lessons about adaptability, unity, and ethical decision-making in the face of existential pressure. These reflections encourage the audience to consider the delicate balance between preservation and adaptation. Societies must retain their identity while remaining flexible enough to survive unprecedented challenges. The story thereby achieves a nuanced exploration of historical processes, ethical dilemmas, and the ongoing struggle for cultural continuity. The spiritual dimension of the narrative is revisited and reinforced in the resolution. Rituals, offerings, and ceremonies are not merely symbolic but serve practical functions in reinforcing community cohesion, moral understanding, and guidance for future actions. Ancestors, as imagined in the story, continue to influence decisions through omens, dreams, and teachings, emphasizing the continuity of knowledge and wisdom across generations. Spiritual insight becomes a tool for ethical discernment, strategic planning, and emotional support, illustrating how cultural and religious frameworks can underpin both survival and societal growth. This integration of spiritual and practical considerations ensures that the story's resolution resonates not only on an emotional level but also on intellectual and philosophical planes, reinforcing the holistic nature of resilience. In the concluding sequences, environmental mastery, strategic ingenuity, and moral insight converge to shape the final outcomes. The community's ability to navigate complex terrain, anticipate and respond to external threats, and make ethically informed decisions ensures their continued survival and cohesion. Individual character arcs are resolved with attention to personal growth, ethical achievement, and relational restoration, highlighting the intertwined nature of physical, emotional, and moral development. The protagonist emerges as both a leader and a cultural guardian, embodying the lessons of the narrative and symbolizing the enduring potential of human societies to overcome adversity through wisdom, courage, and collaboration. Speculative production details imagine these final sequences rendered with cinematic grandeur. Wide shots capture the full scope of the jungle, rivers, and valleys, conveying both the majesty and danger of the environment. Close-ups highlight the emotional resolution of characters, emphasizing the subtleties of relief, grief, hope, and determination. The soundscape blends environmental sounds with ceremonial rhythms and subtle musical motifs, enhancing immersion and emotional resonance. Visual and auditory elements reinforce thematic conclusions, human resilience, cultural fidelity, ethical decision-making, and environmental harmony. Even in moments of quiet reflection, the cinematography and sound design are imagined to maintain narrative tension, beauty, and emotional engagement. The speculative legacy of Apocalypto 2 is also considered within the narrative framework. While purely imaginative, the story posits that the survival and flourishing of the community serve as a testament to the enduring power of cultural knowledge, ethical leadership, and environmental stewardship. Lessons learned through trials and confrontations are transmitted to subsequent generations, ensuring that both practical skills and moral understanding remain intact. Storytelling, ritual, and communal practice are portrayed as critical mechanisms for reinforcing collective memory, embedding the experiences of struggle and triumph into the cultural fabric. The imagined film thus not only extends the narrative of the original Apocalypto but also offers commentary on the broader human experience, emphasizing the enduring importance of wisdom, courage, and ethical conduct in the face of historical and environmental challenges. The concluding reflection highlights that survival, while essential, is insufficient without cultural, ethical, and spiritual continuity. Communities thrive when they integrate knowledge, morality, and adaptability, drawing strength from both heritage and lived experience. Characters' journeys, from initial confrontation with adversity to the resolution of personal, relational, and societal challenges, exemplify the multifaceted nature of resilience. The narrative illustrates that leadership is cultivated through experience, wisdom, and ethical discernment, and that communal cohesion is sustained through shared values, trust, and moral clarity. In this way, the story closes on a note of cautious optimism. Despite the hardships and threats faced, the community's ability to endure, adapt, and maintain its identity ensures the persistence of both life and culture. The imagined impact on audiences is multifaceted. Action, suspense, and environmental challenges engage the senses and heighten narrative immersion, while character arcs, interpersonal drama, and ethical dilemmas foster emotional and intellectual engagement. Spiritual and cultural dimensions provide depth and context, enriching the viewing experience and inviting reflection on human values, historical processes, and the interplay between humans and their environment. By combining spectacle with substance, Apocalypto 2, even as a speculative narrative, demonstrates the potential for cinema to explore complex themes while maintaining visceral engagement, blending historical imagination with human drama, and offering audiences both excitement and meaningful contemplation. In closing, Apocalypto 2 is envisioned as a continuation of the original film's legacy, preserving the visceral intensity, cultural authenticity, and thematic depth that made the 2006 Apocalypto a landmark cinematic experience. Through action, environmental immersion, complex character development, moral exploration, and spiritual reflection, the speculative sequel constructs a rich, multi-layered narrative that honors the original while imagining new dimensions of human struggle, resilience, and cultural continuity. The story emphasizes that survival is not merely physical but is entwined with ethics, culture, and environmental understanding. Through trials, triumphs, and reflection, the characters emerge transformed, and the community endures, leaving an imaginative legacy that celebrates both the human spirit and the enduring wisdom of ancient civilizations. In imagining Apocalypto 2, the cultural and historical fabric of the Maya civilization forms the backbone of the narrative. Unlike the first film, which focused intensely on the immediate survival of a single protagonist and his family, the sequel conceptually expands to explore the intricate societal structures, belief systems, and historical practices that defined Mesoamerican life. The Maya were not a monolithic entity, they were composed of multiple city-states, each with distinct political hierarchies, social norms, and ritual practices. This complexity allows the imagined sequel to explore intertribal dynamics, diplomacy, rivalry, and alliances. Characters must navigate these social landscapes, understanding the subtle codes of etiquette, negotiation, and leadership that govern both survival and power. Anthropological authenticity is critical in these depictions. Fan speculation suggests the sequel would retain the meticulous attention to detail seen in the original Apocalypto, from the construction of dwellings and ceremonial spaces to the tools, weaponry, and adornments of daily life. For instance, warriors might carry obsidian-tipped spears, wooden shields, and carefully woven garments that reflect status and role within the tribe, while artisans craft ritual objects imbued with symbolic meaning. The incorporation of rituals and spiritual practice forms a narrative through line, highlighting the centrality of cosmology in Maya society. Apocalypto 2 imagines ceremonies that mark critical junctures in the characters' lives, rites of passage, offerings to gods, and seasonal observances that synchronize human activity with celestial events. These rituals are more than aesthetic, they shape decision-making, provide communal cohesion, and establish a moral framework for the characters' actions. In one speculative sequence, a priest or elder interprets the movements of Venus or the timing of a solar eclipse as a guide for military or survival strategies. These cosmological observances intertwine with the plot, creating tension and anticipation as the characters navigate both natural and human threats under the guidance of spiritual insight. Mythology also plays a significant role. The Maya pantheon is vast, encompassing gods associated with creation, death, agriculture, war, and the underworld. Apocalypto 2, in fan-conceived narratives, imagines how ancestral myths inform the character's worldview, providing lessons, warnings, and frameworks for interpreting events. Characters may recount stories of heroic ancestors or cautionary tales during moments of rest, reinforcing cultural continuity while contextualizing present dangers. This mythological layer enriches the narrative, providing symbolic resonance for events that might otherwise appear purely survival-driven. Generational continuity emerges as a thematic focus. The protagonist, while facing immediate threats, is acutely aware of the importance of passing knowledge, skills, and cultural values to younger members of the community. Mentorship, storytelling, and hands-on training scenes depict the careful transmission of practical and spiritual knowledge. In some imagined sequences, a young apprentice observes and participates in survival strategies, ritual preparation, and decision-making processes, learning not only technical skills but also the moral and ethical principles that underpin the society. Such sequences deepen character development and reinforce the stakes of survival beyond the immediate moment, the preservation of culture, identity, and history. Cinematic techniques in the sequel are imagined to emphasize immersion, continuity, and symbolic storytelling. The interplay of natural light and shadow, camera angles that convey scale and danger, and the integration of close-ups with sweeping panoramic shots create a visually dynamic experience. Sound design amplifies the realism and emotional impact, incorporating environmental sounds, the rustle of leaves, the call of distant wildlife, the roar of rivers, as well as cultural audio cues like chants, drums, and ceremonial music. The deliberate alternation between ambient sounds and sudden silence heightens tension, particularly during moments of confrontation, pursuit, or moral decision-making. Music, both diegetic and non-diegetic, serves multiple functions. Traditional instruments, rhythmic chanting, and melodic motifs underscore ritual sequences and cultural continuity, while more dramatic, percussion-driven compositions enhance action and suspense. This layered approach to sound deepens emotional resonance, bridging the sensory experience of the environment with the internal states of the characters. Symbolism in Apocalypto 2 extends beyond mythology and ritual. Objects, gestures, and environmental elements carry narrative weight. A carved stone, a sacred plant, or a particular river crossing might symbolize destiny, challenge, or transformation. These elements are integrated organically into the plot, reinforcing thematic depth while grounding the story in the tangible realities of the setting. The sequel's depiction of moral and ethical dilemmas is enriched by historical context. The Maya were a civilization that emphasized communal responsibility, balance with the environment, and reverence for ancestral knowledge. The imagined sequel explores how characters navigate these principles under extreme duress, weighing the demands of survival against the ethical imperatives inherited from their culture. In one pivotal imagined sequence, the protagonist must choose whether to engage in conflict that could secure immediate survival but risk desecrating sacred sites, highlighting the tension between pragmatic necessity and spiritual responsibility. Environmental challenges remain central to the narrative. The jungle, rivers, cliffs, and seasonal hazards are depicted not simply as backdrops but as active participants in the story, testing ingenuity, adaptability, and endurance. Scenes that illustrate fording flooded rivers, navigating treacherous mountain paths, or constructing temporary shelters reinforce the realism of survival while integrating symbolic undertones, the environment as both nurturer and adversary, reflecting the complex relationship between humans and nature. Fan speculation often includes expanded sequences depicting the wider socio-political landscape. Neighboring city-states or tribes may be involved in complex alliances or rivalries, each with distinct leadership, customs, and motivations. This expansion allows for richer storytelling, demonstrating that survival requires not only physical skill but also negotiation, diplomacy, and understanding of broader social networks. The sequel's imagined climax often integrates these multiple layers: physical danger, cultural stakes, ethical decision-making, and spiritual significance, into a cohesive, emotionally resonant conclusion. Even amid destruction, the preservation of knowledge, transmission of culture, and demonstration of human resilience provide thematic closure, ensuring that the story emphasizes continuity and hope as much as survival. Through these elements, Apocalypto 2, as conceived in fan narratives, emerges not only as a continuation of a thrilling survival story but also as a meditation on culture, history, and humanity's capacity to endure. The detailed integration of historical authenticity, mythological depth, cinematic craft, and narrative complexity ensures that the sequel, even as a speculative construct, resonates with the intellectual and emotional qualities that made the original film impactful. After the events of the first Apocalypto, the once mighty Maya civilization is on the verge of collapse. The great cities that once thrived along the rivers and jungles now lie partially abandoned, overtaken by wild vegetation and crumbling stone temples. The people are scattered, struggling to survive in a world where hunger, disease, and war are constant threats. Among the survivors is a young warrior named Ixchel, whose family was torn from her during previous raids. Her journey begins with a desperate quest to reunite with the few remaining members of her tribe, moving cautiously through dense forests teeming with predators and hidden dangers. Each step she takes is a test of her courage, intelligence, and endurance, as the jungle itself seems to conspire against intruders. Ixchel is not alone in her struggle. She encounters Kanek, a former Mayan noble who has survived by retreating from society and embracing a life of solitude in the jungle. Kanek, though reluctant at first, recognizes the bravery and determination within Ixchel and decides to guide her through hidden paths, ancient temples, and secret waterways that few outsiders have ever traversed. Along the way, Ixchel and Kanek are joined by Ahau, a loyal warrior who has lost everything to the chaos consuming their civilization. Together, this small band becomes a family of survivors, learning to trust one another as they face threats from both nature and human adversaries. The external threat grows when a foreign expedition arrives on the shores, representing the early Spanish incursions into the Americas. Led by a ruthless and calculating figure named Cortés, the invaders are armed with weapons the Maya have never seen before, and their diseases silently spread among the local populations, weakening communities before any confrontation can even occur. The contrast between the invaders' technological advantages and the Maya survivors' intimate knowledge of the jungle creates tension and suspense, as the story alternates between thrilling chase sequences, strategic ambushes, and moments of quiet reflection. Ixchel must adapt quickly, learning not only to fight but also to inspire hope among those around her. The journey is fraught with internal conflict as well. Some members of Ixchel's group are driven by fear, arguing for surrender and safety, while others advocate for bold action and resistance. This conflict heightens the emotional stakes, showing how survival is not merely a physical challenge but also a moral and psychological one. Ixchel's leadership is tested repeatedly, forcing her to make decisions that balance loyalty, pragmatism, and the desire to protect her people. Through clever use of the terrain, the survivors orchestrate traps and ambushes that turn the jungle itself into a weapon, leveling the playing field against the better-armed invaders. As the survivors move deeper into the heart of the jungle, they uncover remnants of the old Maya elites who still cling to ancient rituals and traditions, struggling to maintain a connection to a culture that is slipping away. These encounters provide rich cultural context, showing the spiritual and social structures that once guided the civilization, and contrasting sharply with the foreign invaders' brutal efficiency and disregard for local life. The survivors learn from these elders, using knowledge of sacred sites and hidden passages to gain strategic advantages. Each temple, river, and hidden grove becomes both a sanctuary and a battlefield, emphasizing the interconnectedness of people and their environment. The tension escalates as Ixchel and her companions reach the ruins of a once grand city, overgrown and partially reclaimed by nature. This city becomes the focal point for the climactic confrontation between the survivors and the invading forces. Using a combination of guerrilla tactics, intricate traps, and intimate knowledge of the terrain, Ixchel leads a daring defense that highlights her courage, ingenuity, and leadership. The fight is intense and brutal, showing both the horrors of war and the resilience of the human spirit. Even amidst victory, there is loss, friends and allies fall, the city suffers further damage, and the survivors are reminded of the cost of freedom. Throughout this journey, Ixchel emerges not only as a warrior but also as a symbol of resistance and cultural preservation. Her relationship with Kanek evolves from cautious mentorship to mutual respect, and Ahau becomes a steadfast companion whose loyalty strengthens the group. The story weaves personal stakes with broader historical forces, portraying the collapse of civilizations and the arrival of a new world with empathy and depth. Themes of survival, courage, loyalty, and identity dominate the narrative, making it not just an action story but also a meditation on what it means to protect a people and a way of life under extreme duress. In the aftermath of the climactic battles, the survivors stand among the ruins, exhausted but unbroken. Ixchel looks upon the city and the jungle, realizing that while the immediate threat has been repelled, the fight for her people's future is far from over. Disease, famine, and the encroachment of foreign powers remain constant dangers, yet there is hope. The bonds formed among the survivors, their knowledge of the land, and their determination to maintain their culture provide the foundation for a new beginning. The narrative closes on a note of cautious optimism, highlighting both the fragility and resilience of human civilization. Visually, the imagined film emphasizes authenticity and immersion, with dialogue in Yucatec Maya to maintain continuity with the original Apocalypto. The jungle is depicted not only as a physical environment but as a character in itself, shaping the journey, testing the heroes, and symbolizing the endurance of the Maya civilization despite overwhelming odds. Practical stunts, real locations in Mexico and Guatemala, and historically inspired sets and costumes all combine to create a deeply immersive experience that honors the original film while expanding its scope. Ultimately, this imagined sequel presents a story of survival, courage, and cultural preservation, following a young warrior through trials that challenge her body, mind, and spirit. It balances pulse-pounding action with intimate moments of human connection, exploring how individuals navigate the collapse of civilizations and the intrusion of foreign powers. Ixchel's journey becomes a testament to resilience, leadership, and the enduring power of human will, providing a narrative that is both epic in scope and deeply personal in its emotional resonance. The story, though fictional and speculative, pays homage to the themes of the original film, imagining a world where the Maya struggle to preserve their identity in the face of unstoppable change. As Apocalypto 2 unfolds further into its speculative narrative, historical context deepens, providing a richer framework for understanding the characters' actions and the environmental and cultural pressures shaping their decisions. The imagined timeline situates the story at a pivotal moment, where isolated Maya communities are beginning to confront not only internal societal evolution but the looming presence of foreign influences. While the European invaders are depicted as intermittent yet formidable, the story emphasizes the resilience of local societies, who have developed adaptive strategies over centuries to survive, thrive, and maintain cultural cohesion in the face of environmental and political uncertainties. Historical speculation provides texture. Social hierarchies, spiritual frameworks, and technological ingenuity converge to define the unique qualities of these communities, demonstrating the depth and sophistication of their civilization. This layering of history, myth, and imaginative speculation allows the audience to engage not only with the immediate action but with the broader implications of cultural preservation and transformation in the face of historical flux. Secondary characters receive expanded attention, highlighting the diversity of experiences and contributions necessary for communal survival. The young warrior, previously characterized by impulsivity, now assumes a more nuanced role, balancing daring action with reflective strategy. His evolving skills, tempered by mentorship and environmental challenges, illustrate the broader lesson that survival is a dynamic process of learning, adaptation, and ethical engagement. Similarly, healers and spiritual guides are depicted as critical nodes within the social network, mediating conflict, sustaining morale, and providing both practical and symbolic guidance. Their personal growth intersects with communal well-being, emphasizing the interdependence of individuals within a society where every skill, knowledge, and ethical decision carries consequences. Even minor characters, such as hunters, scouts, and craftsmen, are given narrative space, reflecting the complexity and interconnectedness of society. Each character contributes to the story's realism, emphasizing that survival, cultural continuity, and moral development require collaboration, skill sharing, and mutual trust. Environmental storytelling becomes increasingly central, with the jungle, rivers, cliffs, and wildlife functioning as both narrative devices and thematic symbols. Seasonal patterns dictate action, influencing migration, hunting strategies, and agricultural planning. Unpredictable weather events, torrential storms, flash floods, and sudden droughts, serve not only as physical obstacles but as metaphors for uncertainty, mortality, and the need for adaptability. The fauna, from jaguars and snakes to birds and insects, are woven into both the practical and symbolic dimensions of the narrative, reinforcing the characters' deep ecological knowledge and respect for natural cycles. Environmental challenges are never gratuitous, they are carefully calibrated to highlight strategy, moral choices, and communal coordination. The jungle acts simultaneously as adversary, ally, teacher, and witness, shaping the rhythm of life and the contours of the narrative. Historical speculation extends to the cultural and technological interplay between the indigenous communities and the arriving Europeans. The invaders are depicted as technologically advanced yet unfamiliar with the nuanced ecological and social dynamics of the region. This imbalance creates opportunities for strategic ingenuity. Ambushes utilize environmental mastery, while social cohesion and knowledge of terrain compensate for disparities in weaponry and formal training. Characters employ tactics informed by observation, intuition, and collaboration, demonstrating that human ingenuity, when aligned with cultural knowledge and environmental understanding, can offset technological imbalances. These encounters are not presented as simple conflicts of might, they are layered explorations of strategy, ethical decision-making, and cultural negotiation. The historical dimension of these imagined encounters reinforces both narrative tension and thematic resonance, highlighting lessons about adaptation, ethical leadership, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Thematic reinforcement permeates each narrative strand, weaving physical action, moral dilemmas, and cultural reflection into a cohesive whole. Resilience emerges as a core theme, expressed not only through survival in the physical sense but through the preservation of social norms, spiritual practices, and ethical standards. Adaptability is foreground, demonstrating how individuals and communities must evolve strategies, tactics, and behaviors to respond to changing environmental, social, and political landscapes. Courage, both moral and physical, is portrayed in multiple forms: the bravery required to confront predators, the ethical courage to uphold communal principles under duress, and the relational courage necessary to navigate interpersonal tensions and familial responsibilities. The story emphasizes that these qualities are interdependent. Moral fortitude is strengthened by communal support, environmental skill is enhanced by observation and knowledge, and courage is most meaningful when exercised within ethical and cultural frameworks. Secondary plotlines illustrate these thematic principles in action. For instance, a skilled hunter navigates the risks of both predators and external enemies while mentoring apprentices, reinforcing lessons about knowledge transmission, risk assessment, and communal responsibility. A young healer, initially hesitant and uncertain, develops both confidence and strategic insight, learning to balance spiritual guidance with practical medical intervention. These subplots reinforce the central narrative by demonstrating that the survival of the community is a collective achievement, dependent on the growth, ethical behavior, and adaptive strategies of individuals across generational and functional lines. Each subplot also highlights the intersection of personal development with broader societal needs, emphasizing that individual actions have consequences that ripple throughout the community. The narrative continues to explore the interplay between ethical complexity and survival strategy. Characters face decisions with no easy answers, such as choosing whether to prioritize immediate safety over long-term cultural preservation or balancing the risks of confrontation against the potential gains of negotiation or subterfuge. These dilemmas are not only plot devices but thematic statements, emphasizing that survival in a complex environment is inseparable from moral reasoning, foresight, and social responsibility. The audience is invited to reflect on these choices, considering the costs, benefits, and ethical implications of actions in high-stakes scenarios. By foregrounding moral ambiguity alongside environmental and physical challenges, Apocalypto 2's narrative fosters a multidimensional understanding of resilience, courage, and human ingenuity. As the climax approaches in these expanded sequences, environmental and strategic challenges reach new heights. Flooded river crossings, steep cliffs, and dense jungle thickets create dynamic physical obstacles, requiring coordination, ingenuity, and intimate ecological knowledge. Predatory animals are strategically integrated into action sequences, providing both literal danger and symbolic resonance. The invader's presence amplifies tension, forcing the characters to synthesize lessons learned from earlier encounters and deploy combined environmental, strategic, and ethical skills. These sequences are choreographed to emphasize realism and narrative coherence. The environment is an active participant, and every tactical decision reflects the intersection of physical skill, cultural knowledge, and ethical judgment. Suspense is heightened not solely through action but through anticipation, the ethical weight of choices, and the interconnected consequences of decisions. The resolution of secondary character arcs reinforces the story's thematic cohesion. Individuals who have struggled with doubt, impulsivity, or moral uncertainty achieve growth through experience, mentorship, and reflection. Successes and failures are meaningful, illustrating that human development is iterative, cumulative, and socially contextualized. Characters achieve clarity about their roles within the community, the responsibilities that accompany skill and knowledge, and the ethical dimensions of leadership and collaboration. These narrative threads emphasize that the continuity and vitality of the community depend not only on the protagonist but on the growth, resilience, and ethical conduct of every member. In doing so, the story underscores the interconnectedness of survival, morality, and cultural preservation, creating a rich, multifaceted narrative ecosystem. Thematically, the narrative continues to explore the integration of individual and communal survival strategies. Leadership is not merely positional but relational and ethical, grounded in trust, insight, and the capacity to adapt strategies to evolving challenges. Survival is presented as a shared responsibility, wherein each member's contribution, whether through skill, guidance, courage, or ethical action, affects collective outcomes. Environmental stewardship emerges as a moral imperative as well as a practical necessity. Understanding, respecting, and leveraging the natural world is integral to success. These thematic threads reinforce the story's message that resilience, courage, and survival are multidimensional, requiring physical skill, ethical insight, strategic acumen, and cultural fidelity. In terms of cinematic imagination, these sequences are envisioned with immersive visual and auditory techniques. Wide landscape shots emphasize the scale, beauty, and danger of the environment, while close-ups convey nuanced emotional and ethical responses of the characters. Sound design integrates environmental cues, wildlife, water flow, and wind to heighten realism and tension, while music inspired by traditional rhythms underscores critical narrative moments. The choreography of movement, combat, and survival strategy reflects the integration of ecological understanding, physical skill, and ethical decision-making, creating sequences that are visually arresting, emotionally engaging, and thematically resonant. Even subtle interactions, eye contact, gestures, or the manipulation of natural resources, are imbued with narrative significance, reinforcing the story's attention to detail and layered meaning. As the story approaches its final sequences, the convergence of environmental mastery, ethical clarity, and interpersonal cohesion reaches its peak. Characters draw upon cumulative experience, applying lessons learned from both successes and failures to navigate complex challenges. Strategic coordination, ethical decision-making, and moral courage converge to enable survival, protect communal integrity, and secure the transmission of cultural knowledge. These sequences illustrate the integration of individual growth, relational bonds, and societal structures, demonstrating that resilience is a product of interconnected systems rather than isolated heroism. The audience experiences both suspense and emotional resonance, as outcomes are determined not only by physical prowess but by the holistic integration of skill, knowledge, and ethical discernment. The speculative conclusion emphasizes the continuity of cultural legacy. Rituals, oral history, and spiritual guidance are reasserted as central to communal identity, reinforcing the idea that survival is inseparable from ethical, cultural, and spiritual frameworks. The protagonist and key figures are positioned as both leaders and cultural custodians, ensuring that the community's wisdom, knowledge, and ethical principles endure beyond immediate crises. This imaginative ending reinforces the story's thematic arc. The preservation of culture, ethical conduct, and relational cohesion is as crucial as physical survival, ensuring that human societies endure and thrive even in the face of environmental, social, and historical adversity. Through these extended sequences of historical speculation, environmental storytelling, secondary character development, and thematic reinforcement, Apocalypto 2's imagined narrative achieves a holistic vision of survival, resilience, and cultural continuity. Characters evolve through challenges that test their physical, ethical, and strategic capacities, while the environment functions as both adversary and guide. The story emphasizes the interconnectedness of individual, communal, and ecological systems, illustrating that true resilience requires adaptability, ethical insight, and the preservation of cultural identity. Through suspense, emotional resonance, moral complexity, and immersive environmental depiction, the speculative sequel offers a layered, multifaceted narrative that honors the legacy of the original Apocalypto while imagining new dimensions of human struggle, ingenuity, and cultural perseverance. In the imagined narrative of Apocalypto 2, the story does not merely end with the survival of a single generation, it extends into the exploration of legacy, future arcs, and the enduring impact of cultural continuity. The protagonist, having navigated the immediate threats of rival factions and foreign incursions, becomes a figure through which the narrative examines the transmission of knowledge, ethics, and identity across generations. Scenes depict the protagonist teaching younger members of the tribe essential survival skills, tracking, hunting, crafting, and constructing shelters, but also imparting lessons on leadership, morality, and cultural responsibility. This duality emphasizes that survival is as much about sustaining societal values and spiritual integrity as it is about physical endurance. In these sequences, dialogue is carefully constructed to convey instruction and moral nuance. For example, the protagonist may say to an apprentice while preparing for a river crossing, "The river tests your strength, but it also teaches patience. Remember, we must flow with its current, not against it." Such dialogue demonstrates the blending of practical survival instruction with philosophical insight, reinforcing the protagonist's role as both leader and teacher. Future arcs explore how the protagonist's actions ripple across time. The decisions made in response to immediate threats, whether to engage in combat, negotiate, or retreat, impact alliances, cultural preservation, and the social structure of the tribe. Scenes depicting councils or gatherings among elders reveal debates about strategy, ethics, and the interpretation of omens, highlighting the complex decision-making processes that define leadership in a society under existential threat. Fan theories often speculate that the sequel could integrate a generational narrative, showing the protagonist's children or apprentices assuming responsibility for the tribe and facing new challenges. These sequences underscore themes of resilience and continuity, emphasizing that the struggle for survival is ongoing and that cultural identity must be actively preserved, transmitted, and adapted across time. Detailed action sequences are central to maintaining narrative tension and viewer engagement. Conceptualized chase scenes through the jungle are choreographed with environmental realism. Characters leap across roots, swing from vines, and use natural terrain to evade pursuers. Ambush sequences demonstrate tactical ingenuity, as characters leverage the environment, camouflaging themselves in foliage, constructing pitfalls, and using rivers as natural barriers. Such sequences not only provide adrenaline-driven spectacle but also reinforce the thematic emphasis on human adaptability and intelligence in the face of overwhelming odds. The arrival of foreign invaders introduces additional complexity. Characters must confront unfamiliar technology and combat strategies while negotiating cultural and ethical considerations. Scenes depict moments of both confrontation and negotiation. The protagonist might engage in a tense standoff with heavily armed adversaries, only to seek alternative solutions that preserve the tribe's values and reduce unnecessary bloodshed. These sequences highlight the tension between survival pragmatism and moral integrity, a central thematic concern of the imagined sequel. Rituals and ceremonies continue to serve as both narrative and thematic anchors. Detailed scenes might depict a night-long ritual before a decisive battle, where drums echo through the jungle, chants recount ancestral victories and failures, and symbolic offerings are made to ensure guidance and protection. The interplay of ritual and action creates a layered narrative, reinforcing that the characters' decisions are influenced not only by immediate tactical considerations but also by spiritual and cultural imperatives. Dialogue in these ritual sequences conveys reverence and instruction. Elders instruct participants, "We honor those who came before us, for their wisdom guides our hands and steadies our hearts. Without them, we are lost." Such lines underscore the deep integration of cultural memory and spirituality within the storyline, providing emotional and ethical weight to the unfolding events. Fan speculations also envision extended battle sequences that combine strategy, environment, and character development. For instance, an ambush along a cliffside may require the protagonist to coordinate multiple groups, anticipate enemy movements, and make split-second ethical decisions regarding collateral risk. These sequences emphasize that the hero's skill is as much in judgment, leadership, and cultural sensitivity as in physical prowess, reinforcing the narrative's thematic complexity. Environmental sequences, meanwhile, highlight the dynamic relationship between humans and nature. Flooded rivers, sudden landslides, and dense, predator-filled jungles serve as both obstacles and narrative devices, forcing characters to adapt in real time. Scenes of climbing steep slopes under rain, navigating narrow ledges, or improvising shelters provide high-stakes tension while illustrating the protagonist's ingenuity, resourcefulness, and intimate knowledge of the environment. The imagined climax integrates these various narrative threads: moral dilemmas, intertribal alliances, environmental challenges, spiritual rituals, and confrontations with foreign invaders. The convergence of these elements heightens emotional and narrative tension, demanding that the protagonist draw upon all learned skills, knowledge, and wisdom. Symbolic elements underscore the resolution. A ceremonial offering may coincide with victory, the transmission of knowledge to the next generation ensures cultural continuity, and natural cycles such as a sunrise or the appearance of a comet signify hope, renewal, and the enduring cycle of life. Fan-created dialogue and scenes often explore intimate, reflective moments between characters, adding emotional depth. Conversations under starlit skies, the sharing of food and stories, and quiet observation of the jungle's rhythms provide contrast to the intensity of action sequences, humanizing characters and emphasizing the stakes of survival not just physically, but culturally and spiritually. In terms of cinematic style, the sequel continues the use of immersive techniques. Handheld cameras provide immediacy during action, sweeping aerial shots convey scale, and close-ups highlight emotional nuance. Lighting and color are employed symbolically, with dawns, sunsets, and eclipse shadows marking turning points and enhancing mood. Sound design integrates environmental realism with ritualistic and musical motifs, creating a rich auditory landscape that complements visual storytelling. The integration of fan theories, hypothetical sequences, and cultural research demonstrates the depth of engagement that Apocalypto 2 inspires. Discussions often extend to the moral and philosophical dimensions of survival, the impact of historical forces on indigenous cultures, and the narrative possibilities of continuing Jaguar Paw's legacy. These speculations collectively form a rich tapestry of ideas, suggesting how a sequel could expand upon the original film's themes while remaining culturally and historically grounded. Ultimately, Apocalypto 2, even as a speculative work, represents a vision that combines survival drama, cultural preservation, spiritual reflection, and cinematic artistry. Its narrative scope, from individual heroism to intergenerational legacy, from visceral action to contemplative ritual, demonstrates the multifaceted potential of a story rooted in history but expanded through imagination. By integrating detailed sequences, ethical and moral dilemmas, environmental challenges, and the preservation of cultural knowledge, the imagined sequel not only honors the original film but also provides a conceptual framework for storytelling that is immersive, emotionally resonant, and intellectually engaging. Apocalypto 2 exists currently as a highly anticipated fan concept, continuing the narrative of the original 2006 film directed by Mel Gibson. The original Apocalypto was widely praised for its intense portrayal of the Mayan civilization in the midst of decline, using authentic locations in the Yucatan Peninsula, realistic sets, and the Yucatec Maya language to immerse viewers in a historically grounded yet thrilling story of survival. In the film, Jaguar Paw, a young and resourceful man from a peaceful village, is captured during a raid by a more powerful tribe and forced into the brutal practice of human sacrifice. The narrative follows his escape, his treacherous journey through the jungle, and his desperate attempt to return home, reflecting universal themes of courage, family, and resilience. Apocalypto 2, as imagined by fans, seeks to extend this story into new territory, exploring both the consequences of the first film's events and the wider historical context of Mesoamerican civilizations. The concept remains unofficial, with no verified announcement from studios or the original creators, but it has sparked significant interest among enthusiasts who appreciate the cultural, historical, and adventurous elements of the original film. The imagined plot of Apocalypto 2 centers on the survival and legacy of Jaguar Paw or his descendants following the collapse of the Mayan civilization. While the first film ended with a triumphant return to the village, fans speculate that the sequel would delve into a period of immense social and environmental upheaval. With the arrival of European explorers such as Hernán Cortés, the sequel's story might explore the initial contact between indigenous populations and foreign invaders, highlighting cultural collisions, misunderstandings, and violent confrontations. The jungle and natural environment, central to the tension of the first film, continue to play a critical role, presenting both obstacles and opportunities for the characters. Conceptually, the narrative juxtaposes the intimate personal struggle of survival with the broader historical forces at play, combining high-stakes action with reflections on loyalty, leadership, and identity. Fans envision extended sequences of pursuit, strategy, and escape, retaining the original's gripping pace while introducing the dramatic consequences of colonial contact and the pressures of a changing world. The storyline is expected to maintain the immersive, visceral tension that made the original film so compelling, blending historical speculation with cinematic adventure in a manner that respects the culture it depicts. The characters, as imagined by fans, revolve around Jaguar Paw and his lineage, portraying them as courageous, adaptive, and determined in the face of existential challenges. In addition to him, new characters are envisioned to enrich the narrative, including tribal leaders, warriors, and allies from neighboring communities who navigate complex political, social, and moral landscapes. The characters' relationships reflect the intricate dynamics of survival, loyalty, and betrayal, with themes of family, honor, and cultural preservation remaining central. The concept emphasizes how the arrival of foreign explorers might challenge traditional ways of life, testing not only physical endurance but also the social bonds and ethical values of the protagonists. These imagined characters are intended to reflect historical plausibility, representing a spectrum of societal roles and responses to crisis, while providing opportunities for dramatic tension, character development, and audience empathy. Their journeys are both external and internal, mirroring the original's focus on the human struggle against overwhelming odds, while situating the story in a broader historical and geographical context. The cast, as far as the fan concept goes, remains speculative. While many fans imagine Rudy Youngblood reprising his role as Jaguar Paw or portraying a descendant, no official casting announcements have been made. The imagined ensemble includes actors who could realistically portray the physicality and cultural authenticity required by the story, including fluency in indigenous languages, familiarity with historical customs, and the ability to perform demanding action sequences. Concept trailers and fan artworks often depict rugged, determined individuals navigating jungle landscapes, engaging in combat or negotiation, and confronting moral dilemmas, suggesting the type of performers fans hope to see involved. While entirely speculative, these casting ideas reflect a desire to remain faithful to the original film's dedication to authenticity and immersive storytelling, providing the audience with characters who are both compelling and credible within the historical context. In terms of setting, the fan concept sequel continues to emphasize the natural and cultural environment as a vital component of the narrative. Dense jungles, riverine networks, mountains, and villages provide a backdrop that is as much a character as the individuals themselves. The harsh terrain, unpredictable wildlife, and ever-present threat of conflict create a sense of urgency and realism. Villages, ceremonial centers, and sacred sites are envisioned with intricate attention to historical accuracy, reflecting the social, political, and spiritual complexities of Mesoamerican life. The environmental challenges serve not only as obstacles but also as a canvas for the story's themes of survival, adaptation, and resilience. The imagined sequel retains the original's aesthetic of realism, offering audiences a continuation of the immersive and cinematic experience that made Apocalypto a memorable film. Regarding trailers and promotional materials, the only content currently available is fan-made and conceptual. These trailers, often uploaded to platforms like YouTube, attempt to convey the potential atmosphere, tension, and visual style of the imagined sequel. They include scenes of jungle pursuit, strategic conflict, ritualized interactions, and dramatic confrontations with imagined European invaders. While visually striking and evocative, these materials are explicitly labeled as unofficial and should not be mistaken for formal promotional content. They serve primarily as a creative exploration, sparking discussion and anticipation among fans while imagining what a cinematic sequel could look like. The concept trailers are typically accompanied by descriptive texts, speculative storylines, and commentary emphasizing that they are artistic interpretations, not evidence of production. News and updates about Apocalypto 2 are limited and entirely speculative. There have been no studio announcements, official scripts, or confirmed production plans, and any references to release dates or casting should be treated cautiously. The fan community remains active, generating concept art, storyline ideas, and potential trailers, but these efforts are independent and unofficial. Discussions often revolve around the historical plausibility of storylines, the continuation of Jaguar Paw's legacy, and the visual and narrative style of a hypothetical sequel. Despite the absence of formal production details, the enthusiasm of the fan base indicates a strong desire to see the world of Apocalypto extended, reflecting the original film's impact and lasting appeal. Thematically, Apocalypto 2 is imagined to continue exploring survival, courage, cultural identity, and the consequences of societal collapse. The juxtaposition of personal struggle with larger historical forces provides a rich narrative canvas, allowing for exploration of human resilience, ethical dilemmas, and the interaction between civilizations. Environmental and social challenges create tension and drama, while the moral and emotional journeys of the characters provide depth and engagement. The sequel concept emphasizes both action and reflection, combining cinematic spectacle with historical imagination, staying true to the spirit of the original film while expanding its narrative horizons. Finally, it is important to reiterate that Apocalypto 2 remains entirely unofficial. No studio has greenlit production, no director or cast has been confirmed, and all plots, trailers, and promotional materials are speculative. The fan-created content serves to fuel imagination and discussion, offering a vision of what a sequel could entail, but it should not be interpreted as fact. Enthusiasts continue to generate creative material, reflecting both a desire to see the story continue and a deep appreciation for the original film's historical authenticity and cinematic achievement. The concept of Apocalypto 2 thus exists as a compelling exercise in imagination and speculation, celebrating the enduring impact of Jaguar Paw's story and the rich cultural heritage of Mesoamerican civilizations. As the imagined Apocalypto 2 draws to its reflective conclusion, the narrative turns inward, inviting the audience to contemplate the cumulative lessons of survival, resilience, and cultural continuity. The physical trials and external confrontations, while central to the dramatic momentum, are now contextualized within a broader philosophical framework, emphasizing that human endurance is inseparable from ethical awareness, cultural fidelity, and spiritual engagement. The protagonist, the secondary characters, and the community as a whole emerge from their struggles transformed, not simply triumphant survivors but morally and socially evolved participants in a world that demands adaptability, courage, and wisdom in equal measure. The story's resolution suggests that true heroism lies not solely in individual feats of strength or skill but in the capacity to act with insight, empathy, and ethical integrity in service of others and of one's culture. The reflective epilogue situates the characters within the continuum of history, emphasizing the long-term consequences of their choices and actions. Communities that weathered existential threats now find themselves custodians of cultural memory, ethical standards, and ecological knowledge. Through ritual, oral storytelling, and the careful maintenance of traditions, they ensure that the wisdom gained through hardship is transmitted to subsequent generations. The protagonist, once a figure defined by immediate necessity and physical courage, assumes the mantle of leader and cultural custodian, embodying both personal growth and communal responsibility. Secondary characters, too, solidify their roles within the society, demonstrating that resilience is a collective endeavor, dependent on the development, cooperation, and ethical engagement of multiple individuals. The narrative's conclusion, therefore, celebrates the interconnectedness of community, morality, and survival. Philosophical resonance permeates the closing sequences, inviting contemplation on the broader meaning of human existence within both natural and historical contexts. Environmental challenges, once purely tactical obstacles, are now understood as integral to moral and cultural education. The jungle, rivers, cliffs, and wildlife serve as teachers, providing both literal lessons in survival and metaphorical insights into adaptability, humility, and respect for life. The story suggests that humanity's greatest strength lies not merely in the capacity to dominate or endure the physical world, but in the ability to interpret, respond, and harmonize with it. Likewise, the moral and spiritual dimensions of the narrative underscore that human societies endure when they cultivate wisdom, ethical clarity, and cultural cohesion alongside technological or physical prowess. The interplay of these dimensions provides a philosophical anchor, offering the audience insight into how resilience, morality, and cultural preservation intersect in the most challenging circumstances. The narrative emphasizes that history is both a teacher and a mirror. The encounters with external invaders, whether speculative or rooted in historical analogy, illuminate patterns of conflict, adaptation, and cultural negotiation that resonate across time. While physical survival is immediate and urgent, the story underscores that the endurance of values, ethics, and knowledge is equally vital. Communities that maintain ethical coherence, moral discernment, and cultural continuity are better equipped to navigate both predictable and unforeseen challenges. By framing survival as a multidimensional concept, the story elevates the narrative from action-driven spectacle to an exploration of what it means to live responsibly, collectively, and with awareness of both the natural and human forces that shape existence. Emotional closure is achieved through the resolution of personal, relational, and communal arcs. Characters reconcile past conflicts, honor familial and romantic bonds, and integrate lessons from adversity into their ongoing lives. The audience witnesses the transformation of fear into wisdom, impulsivity into prudence, and isolation into cooperative action. Individual triumphs are framed not as solitary victories but as contributions to communal resilience, emphasizing that human survival is inherently relational. Through these resolutions, the story reinforces the principle that ethical, emotional, and social intelligence is as crucial to survival as physical capability or strategic ingenuity. The narrative's emotional resonance thus complements its thematic and philosophical depth, leaving audiences with both satisfaction and reflective engagement. The speculative cinematic vision enhances these narrative themes through deliberate artistic choices. Visual storytelling emphasizes the beauty, danger, and symbolism of the environment, while careful attention to facial expressions, body language, and gesture communicates subtle moral and emotional shifts. Sound design integrates environmental cues, ritualistic rhythms, and natural acoustics to immerse the audience fully in the lived experience of the characters. Music, drawing on cultural motifs, reinforces both narrative tension and resolution, providing a sonic framework that mirrors thematic development. The convergence of visual, auditory, and narrative elements ensures that the final sequences resonate across multiple sensory and intellectual registers, reinforcing the story's complexity and depth. In its final reflection, Apocalypto 2 emphasizes that survival and legacy are inseparable from ethical and cultural stewardship. The community's endurance is not a static achievement but an ongoing process, requiring continuous vigilance, adaptability, and engagement with both the natural world and the moral imperatives that define social cohesion. The protagonist's journey, from immediate survival challenges to becoming a custodian of culture and ethical wisdom, exemplifies the broader narrative arc. Human growth is iterative, relational, and inseparable from societal and environmental contexts. Secondary characters, through their individual developments, reinforce the notion that collective survival depends on the ethical, intellectual, and practical contributions of each member, highlighting the integrated nature of community, culture, and resilience. The story's speculative conclusion also invites audiences to consider the universality of its themes. While rooted in Maya civilization and historical imagination, the narrative speaks to enduring human concerns, how to navigate uncertainty, preserve values, adapt to changing circumstances, and ensure the continuity of knowledge and ethics across generations. By merging historical context, environmental engagement, ethical exploration, and interpersonal drama, the story transcends the specifics of time and place, offering insights applicable to a wide range of human experiences. The speculative nature of Apocalypto 2 allows it to explore what-if scenarios, encouraging reflection on both the resilience of past societies and the broader principles that underlie human survival and cultural preservation. Ultimately, the imagined Apocalypto 2 leaves the audience with a nuanced understanding of what it means to endure, both individually and collectively. Survival is depicted as a multifaceted process encompassing physical skill, strategic acumen, moral clarity, cultural fidelity, and environmental stewardship. The narrative demonstrates that human societies persist not merely through brute strength or technological advantage, but through the careful integration of wisdom, cooperation, courage, and ethical awareness. By depicting the trials, growth, and eventual triumphs of its characters, the story affirms the value of resilience grounded in knowledge, morality, and community, providing an emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually resonant conclusion. The epilogue reinforces the enduring lessons of the narrative. Communities continue to honor ritual, transmit knowledge, and maintain ethical frameworks, ensuring that cultural wisdom is safeguarded for future generations. Characters, having faced mortality, moral ambiguity, and relational complexity, carry forward lessons that integrate experience, reflection, and foresight. Environmental awareness remains a critical component of survival, highlighting the interdependence of humans and their ecosystems. In these closing moments, the narrative celebrates both the persistence of life and the continuity of values, suggesting that civilization endures when knowledge, ethics, and cultural identity are preserved alongside physical survival. In conclusion, Apocalypto 2, even as a speculative extension of its predecessor, achieves a comprehensive exploration of human resilience, ethical growth, cultural preservation, and environmental integration. Through its immersive narrative, complex character arcs, thematic richness, and reflective closure, it offers audiences a multi-layered experience that transcends conventional action-adventure storytelling. The protagonist and supporting characters embody the principles of courage, wisdom, and ethical responsibility, while the community as a whole demonstrates the power of collective action, knowledge transmission, and cultural fidelity. The story's conclusion emphasizes that survival, legacy, and societal continuity are inseparable from ethical, cultural, and environmental engagement, leaving viewers with a profound appreciation for the intricate interplay between human beings, their societies, and the natural world. In this way, Apocalypto 2 completes its speculative keynote with both narrative and philosophical closure. Action, suspense, and environmental mastery provide excitement and immediacy, while moral dilemmas, interpersonal drama, and cultural depth provide reflective engagement. Historical speculation and spiritual insight enhance contextual understanding, situating characters' actions within broader cultural, ethical, and ecological frameworks. The final sequences synthesize these elements, demonstrating that survival is an integrated process encompassing physical skill, strategic intelligence, ethical integrity, cultural continuity, and environmental awareness. The story's imagined legacy is therefore both dramatic and contemplative. It celebrates human ingenuity and courage while emphasizing the enduring importance of ethical and cultural stewardship, leaving audiences with insight, inspiration, and a sense of continuity that bridges past, present, and future. As Apocalypto 2 reaches its conceptual conclusion, the narrative threads woven throughout the story converge into a cohesive resolution that honors both the characters and the cultural context that defines their world. The protagonist, having navigated the intertwined challenges of natural hazards, rival factions, and foreign invaders, stands not only as a survivor but as a custodian of knowledge, tradition, and ethical responsibility. The final sequences depict the protagonist overseeing the successful transmission of skills, cultural practices, and spiritual insights to the younger generation. This act of teaching and mentorship ensures that the heritage of the tribe persists, even amid upheaval and uncertainty, emphasizing the continuity of human resilience across generations. Environmental challenges serve as both narrative climax and symbolic reflection of the trials the characters have endured. Scenes may depict the crossing of a turbulent river, the ascent of a rain-slicked cliff, or the navigation through a dense, predator-filled jungle, each obstacle paralleling the internal struggles of the characters. These sequences reinforce the thematic notion that survival is inseparable from adaptability, intelligence, and a deep respect for the forces of nature. Spiritual and ritualistic elements culminate in these closing sequences. The completion of sacred ceremonies, the proper observance of ancestral rites, and the acknowledgement of omens and celestial phenomena provide both narrative closure and cultural authenticity. The interplay of light and shadow, the rhythm of chants and drums, and the carefully framed imagery of ritual spaces underscore the profound connection between the physical and spiritual dimensions of the characters' lives. Symbolism permeates the final moments. The rising sun after a long night, the appearance of specific birds or animals, or the sighting of a comet or eclipse may signify renewal, hope, and the enduring cycle of life. These motifs reinforce the overarching themes of continuity, cultural resilience, and the moral and spiritual integrity that have guided the characters throughout their journey. Character arcs reach satisfying conceptual resolutions. The protagonist, transformed by experience, emerges as a figure of wisdom, courage, and ethical clarity. Secondary characters, having faced their own trials, achieve growth, reconciliation, or closure, reflecting the multifaceted human response to adversity. Generational arcs are highlighted as the younger members of the tribe assume responsibility, embodying the knowledge, skills, and values imparted by their elders. This passing of the torch underscores the film's meditation on legacy and the responsibility to preserve and adapt cultural heritage. Cinematically, the conclusion maintains the immersive style that defines the imagined sequel. Wide establishing shots of the jungle and settlements convey scale and context, while intimate close-ups capture emotion and reflection. Sound design blends environmental ambience, musical motifs, and ritualistic audio to create a multi-layered sensory experience. The deliberate interplay of pacing, lighting, and sound reinforces the emotional resonance and thematic weight of the conclusion. Apocalypto 2, even as a speculative work, emphasizes the integration of survival, morality, culture, and spirituality. The narrative demonstrates that human resilience is not merely physical but ethical, cultural, and spiritual. Through the protagonist's journey and the unfolding of community, the story explores the complex interplay between individual action and collective responsibility, between immediate necessity and long-term legacy, and between human ingenuity and the enduring power of nature and culture. In fan discussions and conceptual explorations, Apocalypto 2 is often celebrated for its potential to deepen the understanding of Mesoamerican civilizations, to explore nuanced ethical dilemmas, and to provide a rich cinematic experience that balances visceral action with reflective storytelling. By imagining a continuation of Jaguar Paw's legacy, the sequel conceptually bridges the past and future, blending historical authenticity, mythological depth, and narrative creativity. The culmination of the story emphasizes that survival is not only about enduring physical threats but also about preserving identity, knowledge, and moral integrity. The concluding sequences serve as a meditation on the cyclical nature of life, the resilience of culture, and the enduring relevance of ancestral wisdom. In this way, Apocalypto 2, even as a fan-imagined continuation, captures the essence of what made the original film compelling: the exploration of human courage, the consequences of societal collapse, and the profound relationship between people, culture, and environment. Ultimately, the imagined sequel stands as both a thrilling adventure and a thoughtful reflection on cultural continuity, ethical decision-making, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Through action, ritual, dialogue, and immersive cinematic techniques, the story conveys that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, humanity's capacity for resilience, wisdom, and ethical action endures. Apocalypto 2, in this speculative vision, is not merely a continuation of a narrative but a meditation on survival, morality, culture, and the intricate tapestry of human life. By exploring the challenges of both immediate danger and long-term cultural preservation, the sequel conceptually bridges historical context with imaginative storytelling, offering an experience that is intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually resonant. The narrative leaves audiences with a sense of completion, hope, and reflection, highlighting that while landscapes change and generations pass, the lessons of courage, adaptability, and ethical responsibility remain eternal. In totality, Apocalypto 2, as conceived through fan narratives and speculative imagination, fulfills the dual purpose of honoring the original film's visceral intensity and expanding its thematic depth, offering a rich exploration of human resilience, cultural legacy, and the enduring dialogue between past, present, and future. After the events of the first Apocalypto, the once great Maya civilization lies in ruin, its cities overgrown by jungle and its people scattered across the dense forests of Mesoamerica. The air is thick with mist and the sounds of wildlife, howler monkeys screaming in the canopy, the rustle of leaves as small animals scurry through the underbrush, and the distant roar of a jaguar. Ixchel, a young warrior whose family was taken in previous raids, moves cautiously through the jungle, carrying a small satchel with her few remaining heirlooms. Her sharp eyes scan the foliage for danger, her every step calculated, as she whispers softly in Maya, Kinam in wool, affirming her will to survive. Each day is a struggle for survival, with hunger, disease, and the constant threat of enemies forcing her to rely on her instincts and growing cunning. As she travels, Ixchel encounters Kanek, a former noble who has retreated from society to survive in isolation. Kanek is initially wary, his eyes narrowing as he studies her movements. "Who walks the forest unafraid?" he demands, his voice echoing with authority and caution. Ixchel explains her quest to reunite with the remnants of her tribe and protect them from encroaching dangers. After observing her bravery and determination, Kanek agrees to guide her, revealing hidden paths, secret waterways, and the locations of ancient temples long abandoned. Along the way, he teaches Ixchel to read the jungle as a living map, noting subtle signs in the wind, the patterns of animals, and the tracks of unseen enemies. The bond between them grows as they move through waterfalls, rivers filled with lurking caimans, and overgrown stone bridges that whisper the stories of a civilization on the edge of disappearance. The presence of a greater threat becomes clear when foreign ships appear on the distant coastline, their white sails cutting through the morning mist. Spanish invaders disembark, armed with weapons that seem magical to the untrained, steel swords, crossbows, and early firearms. Their leader, a calculating figure named Cortez, surveys the land with a cold, merciless gaze, ordering his men to conquer, exploit, and enslave. Disease spreads quietly behind them, weakening communities before any confrontation begins. Deep in the jungle, Ixchel senses the shift in the air, the birds scatter, monkeys shriek, and the undergrowth trembles with unseen movement. Kanek, sensing danger, places a steadying hand on her shoulder. They come, he whispers, and Ixchel steels herself for the trials ahead. During their journey, Ixchel and Kanek meet Ahau, a loyal warrior whose family was slain in previous raids. Together, the three form a tight-knit group, learning to trust each other as they navigate deadly terrain and evade both nature's hazards and human threats. Ahau trains Ixchel in advanced combat techniques, teaching her to wield obsidian blades with precision and to exploit the jungle's natural traps. The small band must also contend with internal disagreements. Some argue for surrender to avoid further bloodshed, while Ixchel insists that resistance is the only way to ensure their people's survival. Her strategic mind and leadership abilities begin to shine, as she devises plans that use the jungle itself as a weapon, turning vines, cliffs, and hidden pitfalls into instruments of survival. As the survivors move deeper into the heart of the forest, they encounter remnants of the old Maya elites, who continue sacred rituals in partially restored temples. Ixchel watches the ceremonies with awe, observing chants and offerings meant to invoke the protection of the gods. Kanek explains that understanding these traditions is essential, not only for spiritual guidance but also for tactical advantage, as knowledge of sacred sites allows them to anticipate enemy movements and navigate the labyrinthine ruins safely. The lessons imbued by these elders deepen Ixchel's understanding of her heritage, giving her a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. The tension escalates as the group approaches a vast, overgrown city that serves as the focal point for their final confrontation. The Spanish forces arrive in waves, their coordinated attacks met with guerrilla tactics, hidden traps, and clever ambushes orchestrated by Ixchel. Arrows fly, bodies fall, and the jungle seems almost alive, aiding the defenders in their struggle. Ixchel rallies her people, shouting, "We fight not for the land alone, but for our future." Her voice carries across the battlefield, igniting courage and determination in those who had begun to despair. The fight is brutal and chaotic, a clash of steel, fire, and survival instinct, with heavy losses on both sides. Even as victory is achieved, the cost is painfully clear, reminding Ixchel and her companions of the sacrifices required to protect their people. After the battle, the survivors gather among the ruins, their bodies battered but spirits unbroken. Ixchel surveys the ancient temples and overgrown plazas, reflecting on the fragile balance between destruction and survival. Disease, hunger, and the threat of new invasions remain ever present, but the bonds forged in battle and the knowledge of the land provide hope. Her journey from a lone survivor to a capable leader is complete, yet she understands that the struggle for her people's future is ongoing. The jungle, once a place of danger, now stands as a symbol of resilience, offering both protection and lessons in endurance. Throughout this journey, the story explores the resilience of the human spirit, the importance of cultural identity, and the challenges of leadership under extreme pressure. Ixchel grows not just as a fighter but as a guardian of her people's heritage, learning to balance courage with wisdom. The interplay between personal stakes, environmental challenges, and historical forces creates a narrative that is at once intimate and epic, blending intense action with moments of reflection and spiritual depth. Relationships between Ixchel, Kanek, and Ahau highlight loyalty, mentorship, and the emotional bonds that give strength in the face of overwhelming odds. The dense jungle is depicted not merely as a backdrop but as a living entity, shaping every decision, every battle, and every moment of quiet contemplation. Rivers teeming with caimans, hidden waterfalls, and thick canopies serve as both obstacles and allies, while ruined temples and carved stone pathways tell the story of a civilization struggling against the passage of time and the arrival of foreign forces. Dialogue, primarily in English, occasionally incorporates Maya phrases to honor the original film's authenticity, emphasizing the connection between language, culture, and survival. By the conclusion, Ixchel emerges as a symbol of hope and resistance. She has guided her people through peril, preserved their cultural identity, and confronted forces that threaten to erase their existence. While immediate threats have been repelled, the broader struggle continues, reminding viewers that the endurance of a people relies not only on physical survival but on the preservation of knowledge, traditions, and community. The narrative closes with Ixchel standing atop a ruined temple, looking out over the jungle and her people, a figure of determination and resilience, ready to face whatever challenges the future may bring. Apocalypto 2, as conceived by fans of the original 2006 film, represents an ambitious, imaginative continuation of the story set in the waning days of the Mayan civilization. While the first Apocalypto, directed by Mel Gibson, achieved acclaim for its visceral depiction of survival, cultural authenticity, and cinematic intensity, the sequel exists only as a conceptual extension in the minds of its audience. The original film follows Jaguar Paw, a young man from a peaceful Mayan village, who is captured during a raid and forced into a brutal ritualistic environment where his resilience, intelligence, and physical prowess are tested to the utmost. The narrative is tightly intertwined with the setting, emphasizing the jungle not merely as a backdrop but as an active participant in the story. Every element, from the depiction of Mayan architecture and rituals to the use of the Yucatec Maya language, contributes to a sense of immersion that captivates viewers. Apocalypto 2, in the absence of an official production, seeks to continue this vision by exploring what might happen after Jaguar Paw's escape and return, situating the story in a broader historical and cultural framework while retaining the tension, adventure, and intensity that defined the original work. In imagining the plot, fans have speculated extensively on how the sequel could unfold, emphasizing both personal and societal stakes. With the Mayan civilization in decline, the descendants of Jaguar Paw, or perhaps Jaguar Paw himself, would face the complex challenge of survival amidst political fragmentation, environmental hardship, and the encroachment of foreign powers. The arrival of European explorers, such as Hernán Cortés, represents a historical turning point that introduces dramatic conflict, as the indigenous populations confront a culture that is technologically, politically, and militarily different from their own. Conceptually, the sequel could depict strategic confrontations, tense negotiations, and outright conflict between the native communities and outsiders, illustrating both the courage and ingenuity of the protagonists as they adapt to unprecedented threats. The jungle remains central to the narrative, its rivers, cliffs, and dense vegetation providing both obstacles and tactical advantages. Imagined sequences include perilous escapes, clever ambushes, and resourceful use of the natural environment, all of which echo the original film's commitment to realism and high-stakes adventure. Beyond action, the story would likely explore themes of leadership, loyalty, and cultural preservation, highlighting the psychological and emotional dimensions of characters who must navigate a rapidly changing world. Character development in the fan concept sequel is equally central, with Jaguar Paw or his descendants serving as the anchor for the narrative. Fans envision these characters confronting both internal and external challenges, embodying traits such as courage, cunning, and moral integrity. Supporting characters, including tribal leaders, allies, and antagonists, are imagined to reflect the complexities of Mayan social structures and intertribal relationships. The interplay between personal ambition, communal responsibility, and survival instincts provides a rich field for drama, allowing for nuanced character arcs. Potential storylines include mentorship, generational conflict, and ethical dilemmas that question how individuals prioritize family, community, and survival in the face of existential threats. The addition of imagined characters from neighboring regions or newly arrived foreign cultures introduces moral and strategic tension, encouraging exploration of adaptation, resilience, and negotiation in environments fraught with danger. Fans often emphasize that these characters would need to maintain authenticity, demonstrating cultural understanding, linguistic proficiency, and historical plausibility to preserve the immersive nature of the original film. While the cast for Apocalypto 2 remains entirely speculative, there is a consensus among fans that any returning actors, such as Rudy Youngblood as Jaguar Paw, would bring continuity and emotional depth to the narrative. The imagined ensemble could also include new actors capable of portraying the demanding physicality of jungle survival, the complexity of indigenous leadership, and the intensity of cultural confrontations. Concept trailers and fan art often visualize characters negotiating rivers, engaging in ritualistic ceremonies, or participating in combat, suggesting a blend of skill, intelligence, and adaptability in the performers. Fans also speculate that casting choices would need to reflect the linguistic and cultural authenticity central to the original film's acclaim, ensuring that the characters resonate both emotionally and historically. These creative projections, while unofficial, provide insight into how the story might evolve if a professional production were ever undertaken. The setting of the sequel is imagined with equal attention to detail and realism, encompassing dense jungles, sacred villages, ceremonial platforms, and strategic geographic features. The natural environment is depicted as both a challenge and a tool, shaping the characters' survival strategies and informing the tactical dimensions of the story. Rivers, waterfalls, cliffs, and dense undergrowth create continuous obstacles that test ingenuity and endurance. Villages and ceremonial centers are envisioned with elaborate architectural and cultural details, reflecting historical accuracy in their design, decoration, and societal roles. Fans often speculate on environmental storytelling elements, such as the use of natural resources for survival, symbolic representation of spiritual beliefs, and the impact of climatic or ecological changes on daily life. This attention to setting not only reinforces realism but also enriches the narrative by providing context and stakes for character decisions and actions. Trailers and promotional materials, though unofficial, play a critical role in shaping the fan concept of Apocalypto 2. YouTube and social media platforms feature concept trailers that attempt to recreate the intensity, visual style, and narrative tension of the original film. These materials often depict dramatic chase sequences, strategic confrontations, and elaborate cultural rituals, blending live-action footage with creative editing, sound design, and visual effects. While labeled clearly as unofficial, these trailers serve as both inspiration and discussion points, allowing fans to imagine how a full-length sequel could look, sound, and feel. Accompanying commentary often emphasizes the speculative nature of the content, highlighting the dedication of the fan community to imagining an authentic continuation of Jaguar Paw's story. These trailers are a testament to the enthusiasm and creativity of the audience, demonstrating how fan engagement can sustain interest in a narrative even in the absence of official production. The historical and cultural context within which Apocalypto 2 is imagined further enriches the narrative. The decline of the Mayan civilization provides fertile ground for exploring social, political, and environmental challenges. Issues such as resource scarcity, intertribal conflict, ritual obligations, and ecological adaptation are central to the story's plausibility. The arrival of Europeans introduces a clash of civilizations, presenting ethical, strategic, and survival challenges that shape character behavior and narrative outcomes. Fans envision detailed depictions of cultural practices, ceremonies, governance, and spiritual life, emphasizing authenticity and respect for the societies portrayed. This contextual grounding allows the story to explore not only physical survival but also the preservation of knowledge, belief systems, and social cohesion under pressure, adding depth and realism to the fan concept sequel. Thematically, the sequel emphasizes resilience, adaptation, courage, and moral integrity in the face of profound challenges. Characters must navigate personal desires, family obligations, and communal responsibilities, often under extreme duress. Fan speculation suggests that the narrative would explore ethical dilemmas, strategic decision-making, and the tension between tradition and change. Environmental, social, and political obstacles are intertwined with the characters' psychological and emotional journeys, creating a rich tapestry of conflict and growth. Action sequences are imagined not simply as spectacle but as integral components of character development and narrative progression, reflecting the balance of internal and external challenges that defined the original film. The story's potential to explore these layered themes highlights the enduring appeal of Jaguar Paw's narrative and the cultural resonance of the setting. Community engagement is another critical element of the Apocalypto 2 phenomenon. Fans contribute to a collective vision through concept art, detailed analyses of potential storylines, discussion of cultural authenticity, and speculative casting choices. Social media platforms provide spaces for these discussions, allowing enthusiasts to share ideas, debate plausibility, and develop imaginative scenarios. This collaborative creativity sustains interest and encourages deeper engagement with the narrative, even in the absence of an official production. It reflects the enduring impact of the original film, inspiring new generations to consider the historical, cultural, and cinematic dimensions of the story and to imagine the continuation of Jaguar Paw's legacy in rich, immersive detail. Finally, it must be emphasized that Apocalypto 2 remains entirely unofficial, with no studio involvement, no confirmed cast, and no verified plot. All available content exists as fan speculation, conceptual material, and imaginative exercises designed to explore the possibilities of a sequel. Despite this, the richness of the fan community's vision illustrates the enduring appeal of the original film and the potential for storytelling that combines historical authenticity, cinematic spectacle, and human drama. Apocalypto 2, in its conceptual form, serves as both a tribute to the original and a testament to the creativity, dedication, and imagination of its audience, offering a compelling vision of how the story of Jaguar Paw and the Mayan civilization might continue, even if only in the realm of fan creation and speculation. The jungle thickens as Ixchel's group moves cautiously toward the heart of the ruined city, each step measured against the unpredictable dangers of the forest. Vines coil around ancient stones, and the distant calls of howler monkeys echo like warnings through the misty canopy. Ixchel pauses beside a stream, noting the paw prints of a jaguar etched into the muddy bank. She kneels, brushing her fingers over the prints, whispering in Maya, cock, in wool, acknowledging the spirit of the predator that shares their territory. Kanek watches silently, impressed by her reverence for the jungle, and murmurs, the forest respects those who respect it. Every footstep is deliberate, every shadow could hide danger, whether beast, rival tribe, or foreign invader. As the group advances, Ahau spots signs of other humans, broken branches and footprints too large for any jungle animal. He signals Ixchel, who crouches behind a fallen log and observes a small band of Spanish scouts moving cautiously through the trees. Their armor glints dully in the filtered sunlight, and the smell of metal and gunpowder taints the air. Ixchel studies their formation, noting their weapons and behavior, and devises a plan. Using the jungle's natural traps, they prepare to ambush the patrol. Hidden pits are concealed with foliage, and sharpened stakes are positioned along narrow paths. When the invaders pass, arrows fly silently from the canopy, striking with deadly precision, and the group disappears into the undergrowth before the scouts can react. The tension is palpable, every sound amplified, the snapping of a branch, the whisper of wind, the thud of a falling body. The victory is temporary, however. Kanek warns, they will return, and with greater numbers. We must move swiftly. Ixchel agrees, understanding that the jungle, while an ally, cannot protect them indefinitely. As they travel, the group discovers a hidden grotto behind a waterfall, its cavern walls etched with ancient glyphs and depictions of gods and heroes. Here, the survivors rest, using the sanctuary to tend to wounds and share stories of lost family and fallen friends. Ahau sharpens his obsidian blade, recounting tales of past battles, while Ixchel studies the carvings, drawing inspiration and guidance from the ancestors who once walked these lands. The space is both refuge and reminder, survival is intertwined with history, and to endure, they must remember who they are. Nightfall brings new challenges. The jungle transforms, its sounds intensifying, frogs croak in rhythm, insects hum a relentless chorus, and the occasional roar of a jaguar pierces the darkness. Ixchel posts guards while the others rest, teaching them to listen to the rhythms of the night and interpret the signs of approaching threats. Shadows shift, and distant footsteps echo on the forest floor, keeping the group on edge. Kanek silently gestures toward movement near the riverbank. A group of outsiders, likely more scouts, are attempting to cross unnoticed. Ixchel signals Ahau, who silently retrieves arrows tipped with obsidian, ready to intercept. Every movement is calculated, each breath held in anticipation. Days later, the survivors reach the outskirts of the overgrown city, its towering temples partially collapsed but still awe-inspiring. The jungle has claimed much of the stonework, yet the intricate carvings of jaguars, serpents, and gods remain, glowing faintly in patches of sunlight. Ixchel surveys the city from a hilltop, noting choke points, natural barriers, and vantage positions. She instructs her companions to split into smaller groups, setting traps and arranging defenses with precision. The tension between strategy and survival dominates every decision. They cannot afford mistakes. The invaders' advance is inevitable, and the survivors' ingenuity must compensate for their lack of firearms and armor. The first wave of the Spanish arrives under the cover of dawn. The air is thick with smoke from burning torches, and the metallic clatter of armor cuts through the forest. Ixchel leads the defense, her commands crisp and clear: take the high ground. Use the traps. Protect the elders. Arrows and spears fly, striking soldiers unprepared for the guerrilla tactics of their adversaries. Hidden pits claim the unwary, vines entangle legs, and the defenders vanish into the thick undergrowth as quickly as they appear. Canek coordinates the movement of supply caches and wounded companions, while Ahau leads counterattacks with precision, ensuring that every engagement favors the defender's knowledge of terrain. The city becomes a battlefield, its ancient stones ringing with the clash of civilizations. Within the chaos, Ixchel confronts her greatest fear: a small detachment of invaders has flanked the main group, threatening to capture the elders and sacred artifacts. With remarkable agility and strategy, she navigates the crumbling rooftops, leaping across broken terraces and swinging from vines, her obsidian blade striking with lethal accuracy. She moves like a shadow, silent and deadly, embodying the spirit of the jungle itself. The confrontation is brutal and personal, showing both the physical and emotional stakes of the conflict. Each life preserved is a victory, each loss a reminder of the high cost of resistance. After the battle, the survivors regroup in the inner city. Wounds are tended, supplies inventoried, and plans laid for continued survival. Despite the heavy losses, morale is high. Ixchel's leadership has inspired confidence and hope. Canek, observing her from a shaded courtyard, whispers, "You carry not just our people, but the weight of our ancestors." Ixchel nods solemnly, understanding that their struggle is not only for survival, but for the preservation of a culture and way of life that outsiders seek to erase. Over the following weeks, Ixchel leads scouting missions deeper into the jungle, gathering intelligence on potential threats, locating hidden water sources, and finding other survivor groups. These missions reveal internal conflicts within rival tribes and test Ixchel's diplomacy, negotiation, and combat skills. Some tribes are hostile, others wary, and a few willing to ally under her leadership. Every interaction teaches her that survival is more than fighting invaders, it is about uniting a fragmented civilization under shared purpose and trust. Ixchel's bond with Canek deepens, evolving into mutual respect and mentorship, while Ahau's unwavering loyalty strengthens the cohesion of the group. Together, they face not only the external threat of the invaders but also the psychological toll of loss, fear, and uncertainty. Nights around the fire are filled with whispered stories of ancestors, lessons learned in the jungle, and discussions of strategy for defending the remnants of their civilization. The jungle itself becomes a silent partner, offering both concealment and lessons in resilience, its patterns teaching patience, awareness, and adaptability. As months pass, the survivors gain the upper hand through strategic use of terrain, intelligence, and intimate knowledge of the jungle. Small victories accumulate, eroding the morale of the invaders and bolstering the confidence of Ixchel's group. Yet the struggle is ongoing. Disease, famine, and potential reinforcements from the invaders remain constant threats. Ixchel, now fully transformed from a lone survivor into a capable and respected leader, reflects on the lessons learned. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Leadership is the balance of strategy, empathy, and decisiveness, and the survival of a people depends as much on unity and culture as on physical strength. In the final confrontation, Ixchel's group faces a massive reinforcements of invaders approaching the city. Utilizing every trap, ambush, and tactic they have mastered, the defenders orchestrate a coordinated resistance. The jungle itself aids them, with vines, hidden pits, and treacherous terrain turning the battlefield into a maze only they can navigate. Arrows streak through the morning mist, obsidian blades flash in sunlight, and every movement is a calculated effort to maximize advantage against a better-armed foe. The battle is relentless, testing the limits of endurance, skill, and morale. When the dust settles, Ixchel stands atop a ruined temple, surveying the aftermath. Bodies of both friend and foe lie among the jungle and stone, reminders of the cost of survival. The city, though battered, remains under the control of the survivors. Her people, though diminished in number, remain united, their culture and heritage intact. She breathes deeply, feeling the pulse of the jungle and the resilience of those around her. Though the immediate threat has been repelled, Ixchel understands that vigilance, unity, and courage will be necessary for all that is yet to come. The story closes on her figure silhouetted against the dawn, a testament to leadership, perseverance, and the enduring spirit of a people refusing to be forgotten. Apocalypto 2, though currently existing only as a fan concept, represents one of the most ambitious imaginings of a continuation to the original 2006 film directed by Mel Gibson. The original Apocalypto was widely acclaimed for its vivid and immersive portrayal of the Mayan civilization during its period of decline, bringing to life a culture rich in tradition, ceremony, and social complexity. The narrative followed Jaguar Paw, a young man of notable skill, intelligence, and courage, who is captured during a raid on his peaceful village and thrust into a terrifying cycle of ritualistic violence, imprisonment, and survival. What set the original film apart was not only the gripping narrative but also the meticulous attention to historical and cultural authenticity, the use of the Yucatec Maya language, the recreation of village life, hunting techniques, and ritual practices, all combined to produce a cinematic experience that was as educational as it was thrilling. Fans of the film, inspired by its unique blend of action, cultural immersion, and human drama, have long speculated on the possibilities of a sequel that would continue the story of Jaguar Paw and explore the broader historical changes affecting his world. Apocalypto 2, as conceived in fan discussions and concept trailers, seeks to continue this immersive experience, imagining how the legacy of Jaguar Paw would unfold in a changing world filled with new challenges, unfamiliar dangers, and the complex pressures of history. The imagined plot of Apocalypto 2 revolves around the aftermath of the first film, focusing on the survival and growth of Jaguar Paw or his descendants. The Mayan civilization, already under strain due to internal conflicts, environmental pressures, and societal transformation, faces new challenges with the arrival of foreign explorers from Europe. Historical speculation often centers on figures like Hernán Cortés, whose arrival in Mesoamerica introduced profound disruption and cultural confrontation. Fans envision a story that juxtaposes personal survival against these larger historical forces, with the protagonists navigating treacherous terrain, negotiating with rival tribes, and responding to unexpected technological and military superiority. The jungle, which in the original film served as both sanctuary and obstacle, remains central to the narrative, shaping the strategies, movements, and decision-making of characters. The sequel concept includes imagined sequences of pursuit across rivers and cliffs, tense ambushes, and clever survival strategies that test the limits of human endurance. The narrative would not only focus on physical challenges but also explore ethical and social dilemmas. How do leaders make decisions for the survival of their people? How do individuals balance personal loyalty against communal responsibility? And how does culture adapt or resist under the pressure of foreign influence? These thematic threads create a rich tapestry, blending adventure, psychological drama, and historical speculation in a manner faithful to the spirit of the original film. Character development in the fan concept sequel is one of the most extensively discussed aspects. Jaguar Paw, as the central figure, is imagined not only as a survivor but as a leader, a strategist, and a moral anchor for his community. The challenges he faces are both external, in the form of environmental hazards and rival factions, and internal, as he must reconcile his responsibilities to his family, his people, and his own values. Supporting characters are envisioned with equally rich detail, tribal leaders with competing agendas, allies who provide guidance or conflict, and antagonists whose motivations challenge the protagonists ethically and strategically. Fans speculate that the inclusion of characters from neighboring tribes or newly arrived Europeans would heighten tension and provide opportunities for narrative depth, exploring themes such as betrayal, alliance, and the negotiation of power under duress. The interpersonal dynamics are imagined to be layered and complex, reflecting the pressures of a civilization in decline and the moral and practical decisions required to navigate survival, cultural preservation, and identity. Fans emphasize that the characters should maintain authenticity, reflecting historical practices, cultural norms, and realistic human behavior, ensuring that the sequel, even as a concept, resonates with the credibility and emotional impact of the original film. The cast for Apocalypto 2, though entirely speculative, is a topic of considerable discussion among enthusiasts. Many fans imagine Rudy Youngblood reprising his role either as Jaguar Paw himself or as a symbolic representation of his lineage. Other characters, both indigenous and foreign, are imagined to require performers capable of conveying physical strength, emotional depth, and linguistic authenticity. Given the original film's attention to cultural accuracy, it is widely assumed that any casting choices would need to reflect the same commitment to immersive performance, including fluency in indigenous languages, familiarity with historical practices, and a capacity for intense physicality. Concept trailers often depict characters engaging in strategic combat, navigating dense forests, and performing ceremonial practices, emphasizing both the skill and adaptability required by the imagined ensemble. Though unofficial, these casting discussions indicate the depth of thought fans put into imagining a credible, immersive sequel that respects the foundations laid by the original work. Setting and environment remain a critical component of the Apocalypto 2 concept. Fans envision dense jungles, winding rivers, cliffs, and sacred ceremonial centers as integral to both plot and theme. The environment is both an adversary and a tool. Rivers may hinder movement but provide strategic opportunities, cliffs and ravines challenge agility but can be used for defensive advantage, forests conceal both danger and opportunity. Villages, ceremonial centers, and sacred sites are imagined with rich detail, reflecting historical architectural styles, social hierarchies, and ritual practices. The interaction between characters and their environment is central to the narrative, emphasizing adaptability, ingenuity, and respect for the natural world. Environmental storytelling is a recurring theme in fan speculation, where the landscape itself communicates the stakes, pressures, and cultural significance of survival in a changing world. Trailers, concept art, and other fan-created media serve as the primary tools for visualizing Apocalypto 2. These materials, though unofficial, attempt to recreate the intensity, pacing, and visual style of the original film, often blending historical speculation with imaginative storytelling. Concept trailers depict sequences of chase, combat, ceremonial preparation, and negotiation, using creative editing, sound design, and visual effects to convey the tension and stakes of the imagined narrative. Fans use these materials not only for entertainment but also as a platform for discussion, critique, and expansion of the narrative. By imagining how the sequel might look on screen, the fan community actively participates in world building, reinforcing the enduring appeal of the original film while contributing their own interpretive creativity. Historical context is central to the plausibility of Apocalypto 2. The decline of the Mayan civilization, characterized by internal conflict, resource depletion, and ecological pressures, provides a compelling backdrop for narrative tension. The arrival of Europeans introduces additional layers of complexity, offering opportunities for cultural interaction, misunderstanding, and confrontation. Fans speculate on how the story could incorporate realistic depictions of trade, diplomacy, and conflict, alongside ritual and ceremonial practices. By situating the narrative within a credible historical framework, the fan concept sequel can explore not only the adventure and survival elements but also the broader social, cultural, and ethical dimensions of the period. This dual focus on personal struggle and societal transformation is consistent with the approach of the original film, which combined intense action sequences with cultural authenticity and thematic depth. Thematically, the fan concept sequel emphasizes resilience, moral integrity, cultural preservation, and human adaptability. Characters are imagined navigating moral dilemmas, strategic challenges, and environmental hazards, all while maintaining loyalty to family, tribe, and cultural heritage. Action sequences are not merely spectacle but serve to advance character development and thematic resonance, illustrating how physical endurance, ingenuity, and ethical decision-making intersect in high-stakes environments. The narrative is enriched by the interplay of internal and external challenges, reflecting the original film's balance of suspense, drama, and cultural immersion. Community engagement around Apocalypto 2 reflects both enthusiasm and creativity. Fans contribute concept art, storyline speculation, casting ideas, and trailer edits, collectively building a vision of a potential sequel. Online platforms provide spaces for discussion, debate, and collaboration, reinforcing the cultural and narrative significance of the original film while sustaining interest in its imagined continuation. This active participation underscores the enduring impact of Apocalypto and demonstrates the power of fan communities in expanding and reinterpreting beloved narratives. Finally, it must be reiterated that Apocalypto 2 is entirely unofficial. No studio has greenlit production, no confirmed cast exists, and all plots, trailers, and promotional materials are speculative. Despite this, the richness of fan imagination and dedication to authenticity illustrate the lasting impact of the original film and the enduring fascination with Jaguar Paw's story. Apocalypto 2, in its conceptual form, serves as both a tribute to the original and a creative exercise in imagining historical and cinematic possibilities, highlighting the potential for storytelling that combines immersive world-building, human drama, and historical exploration.